this is Angela from Natural Living Alchemy. Welcome to my channel. In today's video, we are going to be making pumpkin sourdough bread. Now, this recipe does make two 900-gram loaves. So I do have a couple videos that I will link in the description box below this one. One is on how to rehydrate a dehydrated sourdough starter, and another one is the Beginner's Complete Guide to Sourdough Bread. Now, I might be using some terms that you are unfamiliar with. I will definitely point you in the direction of that guide video. If you're a little bit unsure of some of the terms I'm going to be using, if you're unsure of some of the techniques that I will be talking about, I do cover them in there. And while it is about an hour and 45-minute video, it is very heavily chaptered, so you can just go to the parts that you want. Anyway, some other things that you're going to find in that description box below the video would be the link to the blog article that has the written instructions. This recipe calls for pumpkin puree. This is not to be mistaken with pumpkin pie filling because there are some differences. In this recipe, we just want the pumpkin. So what I did is I made my own puree out of just one of these little pie pumpkins. So if you were going to go that route, all you would need to do is I just kind of rip off the little handle here, little stem, and then I will just cut it in half, scoop out all the seeds. If you wanted to roast them, you could definitely do that. That's just not something that I've personally done. But anyway, you cut it in half, put it on a cookie sheet. It doesn't matter if you have the squash face down or if you have them face up, whatever way you want to throw them in the oven. So you're going to roast it at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 45 minutes. And you're going to know it's done when it is fork tender. So then what you'll do is just allow your pumpkin to cool off. And then once it's cool, if you've roasted it enough, this skin actually just peels off. And then you would put your pieces of pumpkin in a blender or a food processor, depending on what it is that you have. Then you would want to pulse the food processor or the blender until that your puree is smooth. You might need to add a little bit of water, and that's fine. You just want to make sure that it is a nice consistency and one that is going to be easy to work with. You can keep your pumpkin puree in the refrigerator for up to 5 days, or you can freeze it in Ziploc bags in your desired portions. Now we're going to talk about the equipment that you're going to require to make this bread. Now, keep in mind, you can definitely change up some of the things that I'm using if you don't have them. Maybe you have something at home that would work better than what I'm suggesting or using. Just use that. Now, if you are unsure about some different things that you could substitute this equipment for, again, that beginner's guide that I just talked about did go over the required equipment and different suggestions of things that you could use instead. Okay, first off, we will definitely need our digital scale though, because we are going to be working in weight, okay? Not cups or anything like that. So you're going to require a mixing bowl. You're going to need a digital thermometer, a bread lom, or a knife would work, and this is just for our scoring. You'll need some shower caps or just some plastic film to cover the bowl, a bowl scraper, a bench scraper, little spatulas that are just going to help get the sourdough starter out of the jar, and then a bread whisk. You're also going to need a silicone sling for when it is time to bake. Okay, you don't need this, but it's fun. This is just going to sprinkle a little bit of flour. We'll need another plastic cap here, and then I like to do these batard loaves. I don't personally like the round bowls to eat, and since I am going to be eating this bread, I'm going to be doing it in my preferred shape, but you do yours in your preferred shape, and that'll be fine. I will go over just some little instructions in case you wanted to do one of the round loaves and you wanted to make it into a pumpkin shape because it's kind of fun. I will tell you how to do that. Now, one other thing that is helpful, it is something that I call baker's notes. Okay, I didn't come up with the concept of baker's notes, but this is just the one that I use. So I have gone and filled a lot of it out already, and I will definitely be sharing that recipe with you right away. So I am going to move a lot of this stuff out of my way. Now, our original recipe does not have inclusions. However, I am putting inclusions in one of my loaves just to show you how to do that. Okay, we're going to be doing a bit of a lamination technique, and I am going to be using pumpkin pie spice. This is just a little bit of unsalted homemade butter. I don't normally keep my butter in plastic wrap unless I make it myself. And I do plan on showing you how easy it is to make your own butter out of whipped cream. I think that will be next month or the month after. And then I'm also going to be using sweetened dried cranberries in mine, simply because I couldn't find unsweetened. Okay, so let's get mixing. So all of the ingredients that you're going to require would be 209 grams of sourdough starter. You're going to need 837 grams of bread flour. Now, my particular bread flour came from Costco, and it is just strong baker's flour is what the bag said. But it does have a protein content of over 11.5, so it would be considered a bread flour. You're also going to need 368 grams of water, 335 grams of pumpkin puree, 33 grams of honey, and 17 grams of salt. The night before you want to bake, you're going to need to build your levain. So to do this, I put in 10 grams of my starter. Now, you may be wondering why this looks a little bit brown. That is because I used my tiny starter Rylene, and Rylene was just made and maintained with rye flour. That's why this is just a little bit more of a brown color than a white, like a nice white color that the starters usually are. So you would add 10 grams of starter to your jar, and then you would add 100 grams of your bread flour, and then 100 grams of water. So you're going to do all of that, and then you are going to mix it up really thoroughly, and you're going to allow this to sit in a warm spot for about 10 to 12 hours until it is doubled in size and it is showing you that it is ready to be baked with. So what I want to do first is I just want to check, because for this recipe, we are wanting a desired dough temperature of 78 degrees. So at 78 degrees, it's going to be a little bit better or easier to guess about how long the time is going to take. But I don't want you to get hung up on time. We are going to be reading the dough, not the clock. Okay? So what we are going to do first is we will grab our scale, put your mixing bowl on the scale, and first we are going to add water. So I have gone and heated this up just a little bit. So my, this is a kettle. My kettle goes up, you can program it. So the lowest temperature is 40 degrees Celsius. So I just put it on that. I like to warm up my water a little bit before when I'm putting it in the bowl. And that's just going to help everything, bring everything up to temperature. Because I mean, right now, my starter temperature is at 70 degrees Fahrenheit. So this will help warm it up a little bit. So we are going to start by putting 368 grams of water into our bowl. Perfect. We'll just move that out of the way. Make sure that you are hitting tare to zero out your scale, or just have a really good memory on what all of these things would weigh together. So we are now going to add our pumpkin puree directly into the water. Now this is a little bit different of a process that I went on that beginner's guide. This is just another way to mix up all of your ingredients. So we are going to put 335 grams of pumpkin puree into our water. Perfect. So only because I don't particularly like stirring on top of my scale, I like to take it off. And then we're just going to mix our water and our pumpkin puree together before we add anything else. Okay, so next we are going to add our sourdough starter into our bowl. And we are looking for 209 grams. But she is just bubbling away and she is ready to go. So again, hitting tare and zeroing out your scale, 209 grams of starter. Perfect. So we will move this out of the way. And then I like to mix my starter in with the puree and the water before I add the rest of our ingredients. Perfect. Okay, that's good for now because it will definitely get more thoroughly mixed in just a few moments. So now we are going to add 837 grams of our bread flour. Excellent. Hitting tare on your scale to zero everything out again. We are now going to add 33 grams of honey. And that just goes right over top. Next, we are going to add right on top of this 17 grams of salt. Okay, so those are all of our ingredients. We are just going to move that out of the way. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take note of what time it is if you are using the baker's notes, because we need to know what time we mixed everything in. It's 9:30. Perfect. So now what we are going to do is we are going to start mixing this up with our whisk. Once it gets to that pretty shaggy consistency and you can't mix it with your whisk anymore, then we are going to start using our hands to get everything incorporated. Once it gets kind of to about this point, what I like to do is stop with my dough whisk, and then I like to go first and scrape the bowls down because we want to get all of that flour off the side of the bowl, and then this is when I start to mix with my hands. Okay, so the towel is not necessary, but things might start getting a little bit loud at this point. So now we can see that everything is mixed in. When we go in there with our hands, we don't feel any salt. All of the flour has been incorporated. So now what we're going to do is we're going to spend just a couple minutes, maybe 5, I will suggest, and we are going to just start strengthening our dough. We are just going to be grabbing the dough and just putting it on itself. So kind of scoop it up and just fold it over on itself. And you want to spin the bowl slightly as you're doing it, just to ensure that everything is getting mixed in equally. Okay, so once everything is nicely mixed in and all of your ingredients has been incorporated, look at this beautiful color from the pumpkin puree. I think it's a beautiful color. Anyway, so now what we want to do is you want to take the temperature of your dough after you've mixed it and just see where it is sitting. Now remember, we are looking for a desired dough temperature of 78 degrees Fahrenheit. We are at 75. Okay, and now that we are done mixing, we are going to write what time it is, because this is the time that our bulk fermentation begins. Okay, perfect. Now, because we were looking for a desired dough temperature of 78, ours is at 75. Well, mine is at 75. Yours might be at 78. All that means is it's going to just take a little bit longer at this temperature. That's all. It'll still work. It will still be fine. So what we are going to do now is we are going to allow this to rest for 30 minutes. And after 30 minutes, we are going to come back and do our rounds of stretch and folds. So we are going to do 3 to 4 rounds of stretch and folds every 30, 60, and 90 minutes. Okay, and then after those are done, we are going to allow this to finish bulk fermenting. But I will see you back in a few minutes, in 30 minutes, to show you how to do our first round of stretch and folds. It has been 30 minutes and it is now time to do our first set of stretch and folds. So what you're going to do is you will need a bowl scraper. You're going to need your best friend when working with sourdough, water. We are not going to be adding flour to our hands to not make them sticky. We are going to be using water to do that. So what we'll do first is start directly across from you, and you want to grab your bowl scraper and just loosen the dough from the side of the bowl. Now, while not necessary, you don't really want to be tearing the dough, so pulling it away from the sides is just one way to be gentle with it. So we are going to wet our hands. They're not dripping, but they are a little bit damp. So to do the stretch and fold, you're going to grab your dough, you're going to stretch it, and you're going to fold it over. That's one. We are going to flip our bowl a quarter turn, grab more water on our hands if we need to, and we are going to stretch and fold. Now this is why I like to have the towel underneath it. It is not necessary. I just really didn't want to be too loud on the ears of anybody listening, because sometimes when you're picking it up, the dough sticks to the bowl lifts off the table and ends up slamming back down, and it's kind of loud. So that is what the towel is for. So we're going to stretch and fold. See, if my hands were wetter, that wouldn't have all stuck. And again, we are going to stretch it and fold it over. Perfect. So that is one round. We are going to come back at 60 and 90 minutes to do this again. So I will see you. It's now time to do our fourth and final set of stretch and folds. Exact same process. We are going to take our bowl scraper, loosen the dough from the sides of the bowl, take clean damp hands, and do our stretch and folds. And we will do another 4 on each corner of our bowl. After you finish your 4th set of stretch and fold, you're going to take the temperature and you're going to take note of the time. Now, bulk fermentation at a dough temperature of 78 degrees should take approximately 4 hours. Since mine is at 72, I am expecting it to take longer than that 4 hours. But as always, I am going to read the dough, not the clock, and I'm going to suggest you do the same. So we will meet back here when this is showing signs of bulk fermentation being complete, and it will be time to shape our loaves. Now that our dough has shown signs that bulk fermentation is complete, what we're going to do is we're going to get our bannetons prepared first. So what we will do is I just have some regular all-purpose flour in here. I'm going to take my little flour sprinkler, and then I'm just going to take and sprinkle a bunch of flour in the inside of both of these bannetons. All right, that one is good, and I'm just going to put it to the side and do the second. All right, so we will just move this out of the way. You can also use rice flour, but this is just the flour I grabbed from the cupboard, so that works. What we are looking for, there's a couple different things. You're going to take your dough and you're going to shake it, and we can see that it is jiggly and it is airy, and there is some small bubbles kind of showing up on the top. If you look through the sides of your bowl, you can see all of the different bubbles kind of forming there. And then another thing that I like to do is the poke test. So what that is you're going to dampen a finger and you're just literally going to poke your dough. So let's see. Okay, so what happened is it was, I indented it about 1/2 inch and it sprang back, and you can kind of still see where it was indented. That's good. That's showing signs of good fermentation. If it was to spring back immediately, that's telling you that it needs more time. If it stays indented and there's absolutely no spring back, you have overproofed your dough and it's time to make a focaccia. But just so you know, this is one of the hardest parts of the whole process, is getting this bulk fermentation figured out. This is our divide and pre-shape and rest stage. So what that means is we are going to dump the contents of our bowl onto our countertop, and then we are just going to loosely pre-shape them and then just allow the dough to rest for 35 minutes before we do our final shaping and putting it in our bannetons. So what we will do is you're going to need your bench scraper for this step. Okay, and I just went and got a whole bunch of water on the counter. So you do want to try to keep your workspace dry. Okay, we'll try that again. So you do want to dampen your hands. You're going to take your bowl scraper and we are just going to loosen the dough from the sides of the bowl before we dump it out. Okay, so what we're going to do with this big glob of dough is we are going to roughly cut it in half. Now, if you wanted to, you could certainly put these halves on a scale, because this recipe did tell us that it was making 2 900-gram loaves, but I just like to eyeball it. It doesn't have to be that serious. Okay, perfect. So I am just going to grab one of these dough piles and just put it to the side. Okay, so now what you're going to do is you're going to take your hand and you're just going to kind of cup the bottom of the dough here, and you're going to take your bench scraper and you're going to kind of pull it around and just kind of push it under. And we're just wanting to make kind of a loose bowl shape. Perfect. So that's enough. We are just going to leave this. So let's just take this one. A little bit of dried dough there that I don't want it sitting on. So literally just use your bench scraper to clean off your bench. Okay, so let's move this one out of the way. And then we will grab our other one. Same thing, wet your hand and just push it around. If you didn't want to use your bench scraper, you can literally just wet both hands and it's the same thing. You're just going to push it around and kind of tuck itself underneath itself. The more you do this, the easier, I promise, it will become. Okay. So I can definitely tell this one is bigger than our other one. That's okay. I think what I will do is I will take the one that is a little bit smaller, and that is going to be the one that I'm going to put our filling in, but it really doesn't matter. So what we're going to do now is we're going to allow both of these dough balls to sit on the counter for 35 minutes. And what this is going to do is this is going to dry the top out a little bit, so it will be easier to do our final shaping. Now that our dough has been resting for about 35 minutes, it is time to do our shaping. So we are going to grab a little bit of our flour. And what I did do, because I did say one of these ended up a lot smaller than the other, I just cut some off of this one and just added it to the other one. Dyscalculia in action, my friends. Okay, so what you're going to do is take a little bit of flour and you're going to spread it on the top of this bread. And we don't want too much flour, but we do want a nice coating. If you add too much, it's going to have a hard time sticking to itself, and we will require it to do that. So what we're going to do next is just kind of rub the flour in, where you're going to just wipe it off of the table because we don't need that much extra behind. You're going to grab your bench scraper and you're going to take your dough and we're going to flip it over so that the part that had the flour on it is going to now be at the bottom, and the part that was on the table that is still sticky is going to be on the top. Just like that. And then we are going to place our dough on the table. So then what I'm going to do is just take some, let's not drip water into the flour, that would be silly. So we're just going to dampen the hands and we're going to shape this into a rectangle. So we're just going to gently stretch it out. And if you find that it is scraping if you find that it is sticking too much to the bench, just use your bench scraper to just kind of loosen it up. So once you have something like this, I like to take the one side and just fold it over and gently push it down. And then take the other side and pull that over. You don't want to add flour to this side because we are wanting to make sure that this dough is going to be sticking to itself. So at this point, I do like to kind of stretch it out just a little bit more. And there are multiple different ways that you certainly can do this. But what I like to do is start at the side away from me and just kind of fold this end down so I have a little bit of a V. And then we are just going to start rolling the dough towards us. And as you're rolling it, you're going to take your thumbs and push them away because we're starting to create some surface tension. So roll it towards you, take your thumbs and just kind of push it away. Okay, now what I am going to do is just move this back a little bit so I don't end up on the floor. Okay, and then just take the hands again. And we are just going to start creating some tension. And just bringing it towards you while kind of letting it roll underneath itself. Now I do have a pretty big bubble forming over here. I'm just going to pop that. All right. Now, we don't necessarily want to pull it too much so that it is starting to tear this top layer, but we are wanting to use a little bit of tension just to make it tighter. Okay. And just tuck the sides underneath themselves, just like that. Okay. And then you're going to take your prepared banneton and you're just going to lift up your dough and then place it in the basket. And then what I like to do see another little bubble, is kind of take these sides that are underneath and, oh, don't tear it, and just kind of pull it over and just stick it to itself. Okay, and that's it. So this one is done. So what we're going to do is just take our flour again and then just lightly sprinkle the top with the flour. And then you're going to take your shower cap and just place it right over top. So once that is done, we are just going to take it and just place it to the side for now. So before we shape our next one, I'm just going to go and give my bench a little bit of a scrape so that my dough doesn't end up sticking to some of this that was left behind. Let us shape our second one now, and this is the one that I am choosing to put some inclusions in. So same thing, we are just going to grab some flour and you're just going to sprinkle it over the top. And then you're just going to take and lightly rub the flour in. And then you're going to pick it up. And again, so the flour side is now on the bottom and the sticky side that was on the table is on the top. Okay, so now let's just fold that over there. We're just going to put our dough down. So what we're going to do now is again stretch it into a rectangle. Okay, once we are in our, I guess this is more of a square than a rectangle, what we're going to do is first put some softened butter on the dough. So I like to just use one of these little spatulas. We will see if the butter is soft enough to spread it this way. If it's not, I usually just grab it with my hands and rub it in the dough like that. No, and we are definitely not soft enough. So what we're going to do is I like to just get the butter kind of in my hands and then just put it all, spread it all over the dough like that. Okay, so after you have your first little bit of butter spread out, you're gonna grab some pumpkin pie spice. Now, this is just one that, oh no, there we go. My buttery hands are making it hard to open. I just made this one myself. I will put a recipe on how you can just make your own pumpkin pie spice in the blog article in case you're curious. So you just wanna take maybe not that much over top. We're just going to take a spoon and we're just going to start sprinkling this over top. And right now, honestly, this is a bit of a dealer's choice. How much do you want to add? Add that much. And then we are going to take our cranberries and we are just going to sprinkle these on the top. And these cranberries will end up kind of just rehydrating, and they actually taste really, really nice in this loaf. Okay. So once you have the amount that you want in here, you're going to take, we'll start on this side. You're just going to take this side and we are going to fold it over into the center. And I like to just make them kind of meet in the middle here. And then just gently push it down again. And then you're going to do the same thing. We're going to take our softened butter and we're going to put it in the middle. And then we're going to put our pumpkin pie spice and our cranberries over top. And again, you know, this is the inside of the bread. So it does not need to be that beautiful. As long as the outside looks good, that's really usually all that matters, isn't it? Now, I personally like lots in here. If you only wanted to put a few scattered throughout, that's fine too. I don't know. I personally like bread that has little surprises in it, but it really depends on what you like. Okay, so now we are going to take the opposite side and fold it over and push it down, and we're going to shape it in the exact same way. Now, we do want to be a little bit careful because we do have cinnamon on here. It is not uncommon for the cinnamon to end up maybe where it isn't supposed to be, but that's okay. It looks good at the end still. So take that side away from you, fold it over, and just keep pushing it, and folding it over and pushing it away from you. Now, we do want to be a little bit more gentle because we do have those inclusions inside. Okay, we don't want to pull it too much, but we do want to use a little bit of tension just to kind of tighten this top layer up. So let's just move it back. So I think that that is good. I feel that's enough tension. If I do any more, I'm afraid that things are, oh, we've already busted through. So now you're going, so all I did was, because it was getting a little bit thin on the back, is I just pulled it a little bit tighter, a little bit more towards me while pushing it underneath, and that helped kind of move where that little tear was. So bench scraper, we're going to grab the loaf and put it in. Now we can see on the bottom we have some tears in there. That's fine. You're just going to gently stitch them shut. And the way that you do that is just by pulling a little bit of the dough over top and just letting it stick to itself. Okay, perfect. So I'm just going to leave it like that. Now, we do want to keep in mind that this is the bottom, so if we have a little bit breaking through, not really the end of the world. So then you're just going to grab another shower cap after you sprinkle a little bit of flour on the top. Okay, perfect. And then we are going to allow these to proof in the refrigerator overnight. If you were wanting to make a pumpkin shaped loaf, if you were making a bowl and you wanted to shape it like a pumpkin, this is what you would do. You wouldn't have to do this step until you were ready to bake it. I just don't want to forget about telling you how to do this. This is why I'm explaining it now. So you would take your silicone sling or a piece of parchment paper, whatever it is you're using, and you're going to take some butcher's twine. Make sure that there's absolutely no type of plastic coating on it. It's just twine that can go in the oven. So then you're going to take 4 pieces, probably, you know, about this long. I'd prefer to have it a little longer than too short. And you're going to put 1 string up and down. You're going to put 1 string across, and then you're going to go diagonal one way and diagonal the other way. Okay? And then you're going to take your hand underneath the sling with all of those strings on it, and then you would just carefully put your bowl over this, flip it over, okay? Now, one very important thing, because I did attempt to do this once. If you need to pick up your sourdough after you've put the strings on it, because then you would take and tie the opposite strings together so that you kind of have it a knot on the top. Do not, as much as it might be tempting, pick up your sourdough by those strings. I did that, and what ended up happening is it pulled the strings halfway through the loaf, and I did notice it right away, but I thought, it's a little too late now, let's just see what happens. And basically I could not eat the bread. The string was stuck in it. So I will see you in the morning when it is time to bake. Good morning and welcome back. It is now the next day and it is time to bake our loaves. So what I've done is I put my Dutch oven in the oven to preheat, and we preheated it at 450 degrees, and the Dutch oven was in there for 45 minutes. We want to make sure that our cooking vessel is nice and warm. Now, keep in mind, you don't necessarily have to only cook bread in a Dutch oven. I know that there's different methods of open baking that are out there too. I'm just not too familiar with them, so I don't want to give you false instructions on how to do that until I work with it a little bit more. So what we are going to do before I pull my Dutch oven out is we are going to prepare this loaf. So we are going to remove our cover, and then you are going to grab either a silicone sling or a piece of parchment paper, and look at how much it did rise more in the fridge, which is good. So we are going to put this over top, and you're going to carefully flip it out. Actually, I'm going to just move these two out of the way. So what we will do is you want to put, I usually like doing it this way and putting it in my dominant hand, my non-dominant hand over top, and flipping it out. Now, the way I put my hand over these ones is so that actually part of my wrist is also supporting it, just so that the dough doesn't end up falling all over the place. So we will flip it over, put it down, and then just carefully pull off the banneton. Okay, so we're just going to wipe off. There we go. Just kind of wipe off any of the excess flour. Now keep in mind, if you were wanting to do a decorative score, you could sprinkle new flour on it, and then that would help the score show up better. But I don't do a lot of decorative stuff apart from maybe a line and some attempts at some wheat. That's about it. So what we are going to do for this one is I'm just going to move it so that it is just kind of up and down. You can do it either way. I just prefer doing it this way. Okay, so once that is done, what we're going to do is you're just going to gently move this over, and we are going to grab our Dutch oven out of the oven. All right. So once you take your Dutch oven out of the oven, I want you to open it a very specific way, and you're going to open it away from you, because we do not want all of that steam that just came out to hit you. It does unnecessary. So next you're going to take your sling and just place it in your Dutch oven in the center. And then I like to put 1 to 3 ice cubes in here, and that's going to help create the steam, which is going to help create the crust. So we'll just put 1 here. We will just do 2. So we will put our lid back on and put it back in the oven. All right, so we are going to allow that to cook for 20 minutes. After the 20 minutes have elapsed, we are going to change the temperature down to 425. And then you're going to let it cook for another 20 minutes. Then after that second 20 minutes is up, check your loaf. See if you are happy with the color of the crust, or if you want it to cook a little bit longer. Just keep in mind, we are looking for an internal temperature of 205 to 200 degrees Fahrenheit. So while that's baking, let's just go over a couple more things. So you are going to want to make sure at this point that you do have some type of cooling rack that you can put your cooked loaf of bread on. You just need something to allow some of the air to kind of cool it underneath. We don't really want any of our bread kind of getting soggy when it is in its cool down period. Remember that you can add certain add-ins during the second set of stretch and folds, and that will ensure even distribution. So that's when we could add our cranberries, our raisins, or just different nuts that you would like. Maybe even some seeds, depending on your preferences, of course. But if you're going to be adding anything with cinnamon, due to those antimicrobial effects, it will interfere with your bulk fermentation. Now, if you've baked a bunch of bread and you're comfortable with that, that's fine. You could add it earlier during that second set of stretch and folds just to see what happens. Or maybe even throw cinnamon in the bread itself. You can definitely experiment with it. But just know that it will interfere with your bulk fermentation. So that's why I like to do it after bulk fermentation is complete. Because we are using honey, honey will encourage browning of the loaf. So you definitely want to keep an eye on it just to make sure it doesn't end up getting a little burnt. But I do prefer that nice deep color that the honey will give you. And lastly, my final note and suggestion would be to learn to read the dough, not the clock. Don't rely on how many minutes have passed by. Rely on what the dough is telling you, and you just need to learn to read it to understand. Now, if you do want to grab a copy of the baker's notes that I have been using, you can do so. I will have a copy of them linked in the blog article that you can grab a copy of. It's in the description box below this video. Okay, so it has been 20 minutes, and first we are going to turn our temperature on our oven down from 450 to 425. Okay, perfect. And then it is now time to do our second half of baking without our lid. So let's remove it, opening it away from us. Okay, perfect. So we can see that it is starting to brown. It did expand here, and this is looking good. So we're going to put it in the oven for another 20 minutes, and you're going to then come back and check it at that 20-minute mark. Now, you might not find yours is done at that point, but we want to make sure, because of that honey, that the loaf doesn't get too browned. Now, because the two loaves are pretty much the same, the one with the inclusions might take a little bit different of an amount of time to cook, but last time that I made this with those exact same inclusions, it was also done around that 20-minute mark. So because they are the exact same, all I'm saying is I'm only going to be baking the one with you. I don't think that you really need to watch me bake the second one, okay? Because it's going to be the exact same process. So I will see you back here when this is done to show you what it looks like. Okay, so we have now been baking for another 20 minutes. I checked the temperature. We are at about 208 degrees. That is exactly what we are looking for. So what we are going to do, especially if you're going to be baking the two loaves one after another, is we are going to put our Dutch oven back into the oven, both pieces, to allow both pieces to rise back up to 450. So I like to just put it in for, in about 20-25 minutes, and then I will go through the same process of scoring and all that. Make sure that you are warming your oven back up to 450 degrees as well. So then once everything's done, you're just going to remove the bread from the silicone sling, and you are going to allow this to cool off for about 1 to 2 hours is my suggestion. Now, as you will notice, my loaf of bread does not have the ear. That's just that piece that's going to puff up on the top. So the ear doesn't actually tell you much about the fermentation process. Your loaves might never have an ear, and they will be perfectly fine and delicious. So don't forget to hit the like button if you've liked this video, and maybe share it with anyone else who you think might enjoy it. Consider subscribing to the channel so that we can spend more time together and that you don't miss future videos. But I just want to say thanks for stopping by today, and I'll see you next time.